Today I'm going to talk about oil changes. So I think we all know that oil changes are important for your car's life. Um, Not only oil changes, but checking the oil. Unfortunately, it seems like today, uh, even new cars use a lot more oil than what they used to. If you're not checking your oil between oil changes, you're messing up. Um, Cars with 100,000 miles are using 2 quarts between oil changes. Um, so it's something to keep in mind. As far as price goes on oil changes, I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to set a price on that because, for one, if you use an independent shop like me, I mean, I can hardly do an oil change for $100. And of course, that depends on the vehicle, the type of oil, and all that kind of stuff. You go to an oil change place, you're gonna get an oil change. I don't know. I've heard 65, $85. I don't know. I don't go to those places, so I'm not 100% sure. And there's other things like some oil filters are $15, some oil filters are $30, and uh, a friend of mine's car, a little Hyundai, holds 3.5 quarts. Well, uh, my Camaro holds 8 quarts. So there's a lot of variation there. But you can expect to pay anywhere from $65 to probably $120, maybe even higher than that. If you went to a dealer, I'm sure it's higher than that for an oil change. Um, the reason why I'm doing the oil change video is that's what I was asked about on my first when I said I was going to kick this series off. I was asked about my opinion on oil change intervals. So um, I'm going to give you my 2 cents on that and a couple other little things that you should know. So first off, filters. I was told not too long ago by an engine builder out in California that specifically builds Hyundai engines. He said, do not put an aftermarket oil filter on a Hyundai engine if you want it to last. Um, you know, I'm sure he has a reason for saying that. He wouldn't have told me that if there wasn't a reason for it. Oil filter quality is definitely, there's oil filter companies that are very good at marketing, but they're not necessarily good at having quality filters. So there's big name filters that we think, because we've seen their product in the market for years and years, that it's good, but that may not necessarily be true. And everything I tell you in this video, you kind of maybe need to do your own research. Um, you know, don't take my word for it. There's going to be some things that I tell you that is my opinion and my experience. So definitely do your own research. But uh, you know, OEM oil filter when you can.
Hello, Moto.
OEM oil filter when you can. I personally like Wix filters. I know that Napa Gold filters are good too. You have to just do your own research on that. Right there, don't get an oil filter just because it's cheap. You go to one of them quick lube places, and yeah, the the filter may be cheaper, the oil may be cheaper, but what are they really using? You know, so that's something to consider. Um, Oil change intervals. Oil change intervals. Uh, you know, my opinion, you got three different oil change intervals. You got 3,000, 5,000, and 7,500, and that is conventional oil, synthetic blend, and full synthetic. I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think some of the intervals. I think some of the cars are going like 11,000 miles on oil changes, and I just think that's too much. Um, I talked about in my last video how we're seeing a lot of engine failure between 100 to 200,000 miles, and I think the oil change intervals getting raised so high is part of that problem. Uh, the other part of the problem is that in search of mileage, fuel mileage, they have switched us to 0-20 oil in a lot of vehicles, and now they're kind of backtracking from that. Really, uh, engines that used to say 0-20 are now back to 530. Um, I was very skeptical. Well, I didn't know what to think. I guess I was like everybody else, and well, it says 0-20, so I need to use 0-20. And I wish I would have put more thought into that years ago when it first started happening. Um, so, like I said, I'm going to try to make these videos as easy to understand as possible. So, the passages where the oil goes through in the engine, the only reason, like, because they say that it'll cause damage if you don't use 0-20. They've actually stated that. Some car manufacturers have. So, the only reason why you would ever need to go to a thinner weight oil because of the way it's manufactured is the gap where the oil sits is so tight that it has to be a thinner viscosity to easily flow into there. I mean, I've heard of that on some race engines and stuff, so I knew that was a possibility. I just assumed that's what had happened. Well, I didn't do my own research. I just took it for granted that that's what we're supposed to do these days. Well, um, I started seeing people talk bad about synthetic oils and also talk bad about 0-20 in general and how it just doesn't protect the engine the way that it should. Well, uh, so I thought, well, let me look and see. I started looking at these numbers and seeing, well, did they change these numbers? Did they change the clearances? And that's why it needs this. Well, no, they didn't. When you start looking at specifications for 530 motors versus 0-20 motors, they're the same specifications. And I thought, man, I was duped just like everybody else. Like I said, the thing is gas mileage is what we're after. And I don't know what kind of gas mileage you're going to get from going from 530 to 0-20, but to me it seems minuscule. Um, because if you think about how thin 0-20 already is, imagine what it's like at 200 degrees, So I say all that to say, personally, I would never put 0-20 in an engine again. And since I've switched everybody over to 530, and actually, if you look even now, manufacturer states in a hot climate like we have here in the South, you should be running 530 anyway. Even the stuff that says 0-20 on it is 530 in hot climates. But it was also brought to my attention that people are getting these same engines all over the world. Everybody else is running 530. 0-20 is only being ran here in America. So, like I said, do your own research on that. But every engine I've switched over to 530 is ran quieter, um, seemed to use less oil, um, just things like that. So, here's the other last thing that I kind of want to go over: conventional, synthetic, blend, and synthetic. So conventional, if you don't change it enough, obviously, first of all, you got to change it every 3,000 miles, so that's inconvenient. If you don't change it enough, it leaves like a greasy black residue. Well, synthetic has only been ran for, it's only been popular for 20 years, probably, really, maybe 30 years. So it's taken a long time for us to know what the side effects are of that. Well, come to find out, synthetic oil, full synthetic, leaves like a hard black gunk in your motor that sticks oil rings. Uh, it makes the engines wear out faster. Um, I don't know. I've just seen some things that I'm like, where did that come from? And then I see other people talking about it, and apparently this nasty black, it's almost like glue, is what I like, because I mean it makes parts stick together. I'm curious if that's why the Chevy lifters are failing, and things of that nature. So 530 synthetic blend, and I'm not um st- stuck on one brand. It's just there's not a lot of brands that do synthetic blend anymore. So Castrol GTX 530 synthetic blend is what I've been running, and um, it seems to work really good. Now, all that being said, people could argue with me, oh, you get better protection out of synthetic on your bearings and stuff. I'm not buying it. And I'm not going to say that what I'm about to tell you was caused by synthetic oil, but um, the only engine failures I've ever had has been on Mobile One synthetic oil. Um, and it wasn't the oil's fault. I'm not saying that it was, but I'm just saying that running Mobile One in my engine didn't keep it from blowing up. So, um, the question I got after the last video was, what do you feel about service intervals? 3,000 on conventional, 5,000 on synthetic blend, 7,500 on full synthetic. I would not run 11,000 miles on an oil change on a vehicle that you're trying to keep. So if I missed anything, in that video, oh, the other thing too about going to uh, uh, a small shop or an actual car repair place versus an oil change place, those guys are going to be, the guys at the car repair place are going to be more trained to catch any kind of a failure, something that's about to fail, than somebody that's just paid to change oil all day long. So, you may be paying a little bit more for your oil changes, but you're probably getting a better quality filter. I won't put a cheap filter on. That's part of the reason why my oil changes are so expensive, because I will not put a cheap filter on your car. I will not put subpar oil in your car. Um, and chances are I'm gonna catch something that an oil change tech wouldn't. I'm not saying that there isn't good oil change techs out there, because there definitely is, but they're usually young, inexperienced, and not gonna catch something that a veteran technician is gonna catch. So all that's just food for thought. Please subscribe and like if you like these videos. Uh, if I don't see anything in the comments directing me where to go, I think I have my idea for my next video next week. But um, like we always say here at Garage Ministries, we're just trying to help you live a little bit better life.